The afternoon light draped Maple Ridge in soft gold as 12-year-old Nia Cole adjusted the strap of her backpack and held Rex's leash firmly in her hand. The purebred German Shepherd, 5 years old and trained with precise discipline, moved at her left side in a perfect heel. His silver sable coat shimmered, his ears pivoting to every suburban sound, sprinklers ticking, a lawnmower growling 3 houses away. For Nia, these walks were more than routine. They were constellations stitched into her day. She wore her favorite NASA t-shirt, hair pulled back, notebook peeking from her pocket, where she jotted star names for later. Rex glanced up at her every few steps, a steady companion who had guarded her since her mother's passing. Together they turned the corner, unaware that the calm rhythm of leash and footsteps was about to shatter into something cruel and unforgettable. The hum of tires carried unease long before the blue and white came into view. A patrol cruiser slowed beside them, its shadow stretching across the sidewalk. Sergeant Derek Barnes leaned from the driver's seat, salt and pepper hair slicked back, eyes sharp and calculating. Officer Chase Keene followed, younger, restless energy flickering in every gesture. "Nice afternoon," Barnes said, though his gaze lingered on Rex. Nia shifted slightly, recalling her father's lessons about posture and calm. Rex remained motionless at her side, alert but not tense. "That's a big dog for a girl," Keene remarked, stepping closer than necessary. His hand brushed his holster, casual in appearance but heavy in implication. Nia's voice remained steady. "He's trained, sir. He won't cause trouble." Barnes exchanged a glance with his partner, something unspoken passing between them. The cruiser engine ticked in idle silence, and the easy rhythm of the walk dissolved into dread.
Rex's instincts sensed it before Nia did. The shift in air, the sharpness in Keene's step, small cues woven together into a single warning. Without bark or growl, Rex slid 1 step forward, shoulders firm, body aligned protectively between girl and officer. Nia tightened her grip on the leash, her pulse climbing. Though she knew this stance well, it was defense, not aggression. "Control your animal," Keene snapped, tone suddenly edged. Nia lifted her chin, voice quivering but clear. "He is controlled. If you step back, he'll relax." The tension thickened. A curtain of quiet spread across the street, broken only by the cruiser's idling motor. Barnes's eyes narrowed, measuring not the dog but the child behind him. Neighbors peeked through curtains, sensing something off. In that fragile moment, Nia prayed the officers would retreat. Instead, she saw Keene's fingers twitch toward the weapon at his side. The crack split the neighborhood open. Nia flinched as Chase Keene's weapon flashed, the sound echoing like a bolt from clear skies. Rex jolted, a shocked whimper tearing from his chest as he collapsed onto the sidewalk. Dark crimson spread quickly through his thick sable coat. "Rex!" Nia screamed, dropping to her knees, hands pressing desperately against the wound. The world narrowed to the warmth of blood seeping through her fingers and the frantic rhythm of her heart. Barnes spoke flatly, almost rehearsed. "Aggressive dog, we had no choice." His words ricocheted against the horror unfolding at his feet. Nia's cries carried down Maple Ridge Drive, pulling blinds aside and doors open. The perfect suburban calm shattered, replaced by disbelief and fear. Rex's eyes found hers, cloudy with pain, yet still fixed on the girl he had sworn to protect. His tail twitched once, faint as a goodbye.
Doors creaked open, and footsteps multiplied. Ruth Vargas, 81, shuffled onto her porch, her thin frame steadying against the railing. She held up her phone, camera trained directly on the officers and the child bleeding onto the pavement beside her dog. "I saw it all," Ruth whispered to no one, her voice caught between rage and sorrow. Other neighbors lingered on driveways, hesitant but recording. "The dog was aggressive," Barnes repeated louder now, his gaze darting toward the glowing screens. His words sounded thin against the high-pitched sobs pouring from Nia as she pressed both hands harder onto Rex's chest. Keen's jaw tightened, but he holstered his weapon, sweat already forming near his temples. The sprinkler next door clicked rhythmically, absurd against the chaos. Nia lifted her tear-streaked face. "He was protecting me! You scared him!" Her voice cracked. Silence answered, except for Rex's labored breaths. "Step away, miss," Barnes ordered, reaching for Nia's arm. She jerked back violently, still shielding Rex's body. Keen moved in, his partner's command doubling as threat. Ruth's voice cut across the scene, thin but sharp. "Don't you dare lay another hand on her, not without family here." She descended her steps, phone still raised, every tremor in her hand steadied by conviction. The officers froze at the growing circle of recording eyes. "We'll take her to the station," Barnes insisted, but Ruth stepped between them, fragile frame squared like armor. "That child isn't going anywhere without her kin, and I'll swear it on record." Nia clung to Rex's fur, sobbing, unwilling to let go. The officers exchanged a glance, uncertainty flickering. Sirens wailed faint in the distance, the sound of backup or salvation. Either way, the leash that once symbolized safety now lay coiled in blood.
A black sedan screeched to the curb, door flung open before the wheels stopped turning. Nia Cole, 34, civil rights attorney and aunt, sprinted forward, heels clattering against concrete. She dropped to her knees beside Nia, wrapping arms around the trembling child, eyes blazing with fury at the officers. "You held her without consent? You shot a registered service animal?" Her voice was courtroom steel. Barnes shifted uneasily, muttering about safety. Erica pointed at Rex's heaving body. "Safety doesn't bleed out on a sidewalk." Neighbors murmured agreement, phones still recording. "We need medical transport now," Erica demanded. "Protocol says," Keen began, but she cut him off with a raised hand. "Protocol doesn't supersede law or life." She pressed a hand to Rex's chest, feeling the faint rise and fall. "Stay with us, boy," she whispered. For the first time, Nia's sobs quieted into fragile hope. 3 miles away, a key turned in a lock. Thomas Cole stepped into the family home, duffel bag still slung over his shoulder from a consulting trip. The silence struck first, heavy and unnatural. On the kitchen chair lay Nia's NASA t-shirt, folded neatly but stained dark with blood. His hand trembled as he touched the fabric, then clenched into a fist. Thomas had faced war zones, but the quiet here chilled him more than gunfire. He opened the drawer where Rex's leash was usually hung, empty. His phone buzzed with Erica's frantic message, words blurred, but he understood enough. His daughter, his dog, both shattered by men sworn to protect. He inhaled once, slow, the way he had before missions. This wasn't combat, he told himself. It was worse, because the battlefield had come to his doorstep, and the stakes had his daughter's eyes.
At Maple Ridge Veterinary Trauma, Dr. Nora Ray adjusted her scrub cap, eyes sharp behind protective glasses. "Severe chest wound, massive blood loss. We move now or he's gone," she told Erica, who had just arrived with Nia and Rex. The German Shepherd's body trembled weakly on the gurney, paws twitching as if chasing dreams. "You can save him?" Nia's voice cracked, raw from crying. "We'll try," Nora replied, already prepping. Consent forms blurred beneath Erica's pen as she signed, her niece's tears staining the paper. Thomas burst into the lobby, chest heaving, his gaze locking on Rex as orderlies wheeled him through swinging doors. "Stay with us," Thomas murmured, his palm brushing the dog's flank. For a soldier who'd walked deserts, jungles, and ruins, this sterile corridor was the most terrifying battlefield. Surgery lights glowed ahead, a beacon that could mean life or the end. Inside the operating room, Rex lay draped in blue, his breathing shallow against the rhythmic beep of monitors. Dr. Nora Ray's voice carried calm authority. Clamp, suction, now. Nurses moved in swift harmony. In the observation window, Nia pressed trembling fingers to the glass, her whisper fogging the surface. Find Orion's belt, boy. We'll stargaze again. Erica stood behind her, steadying the child with a hand on her shoulder. Thomas paced like a caged soldier, each surgical command digging trenches in his mind. Minutes stretched elastic. Blood pumped, machines hissed, hope clung by sutures. Then, a flicker. Rex's tail tapped once against the sterile sheet, faint but deliberate. Nia gasped, tears mixing with laughter. "He hears me," she whispered. Nora didn't look up, but her tone softened. "Then let's give him a reason to keep listening." For the first time, hope pulsed brighter than fear.
The morning after surgery, Thomas stood at the kitchen counter, the TV glowing in the background. A suited police spokesperson spoke with practiced calm. Officers Barnes and Keene acted appropriately. The canine lunged. They feared for the child's safety. The words landed like stones, detached from truth. Nia sat at the table, silent, tracing tiny stars in her notebook, her other hand still bandaged from pressing Rex's wound. Erica muted the broadcast, her jaw tight. "They've written the narrative already," she said. Thomas's eyes narrowed. He had seen propaganda before in distant battlefields, always neat, always sanitized. This time it was aimed at his daughter and her dog. On the refrigerator, a crayon drawing of Rex still hung with magnets, his fur shaded silver with care. The image mocked the words echoing from the screen, "Aggressive dog." Thomas's silence hardened into something colder than anger. Later that day, as Erica prepared her legal filings, Officer Katie Holt appeared quietly at their front door. She removed her cap, eyes darting to be sure no one had followed. "I saw what happened," she said softly. Nia peeked from behind Erica, clutching Rex's worn leash. "I can't say much," Holt continued, lowering her voice, "but complaints against Barnes and Keene disappear faster than they're filed. People in this neighborhood have stories, families of color especially." Erica's eyes sharpened, already parsing legal weight. "Then you're telling me where to look." Holt nodded, slipping a folded page into Erica's hand, a list of case numbers, redacted but traceable. Before leaving, she knelt slightly, meeting Nia's eyes. "Your dog's not aggressive, sweetheart. He did exactly what he was supposed to." For the first time since the shooting, Nia's lips parted in the smallest flicker of a smile.
At the veterinary trauma center, the lights buzzed low and antiseptic. Nia sat cross-legged on the floor beside Rex's recovery cage, her notebook open across her knees. She whispered constellations as if each name were a lifeline: Orion, Cassiopeia, Lyra. The German shepherd's body was wrapped in bandages, chest rising unevenly, but his ears twitched faintly at her voice. Thomas leaned against the wall, arms folded, his usually unshakable presence bent under the weight of helplessness. Erica stood at the reception desk, signing documents that stacked like bricks. Dr. Nora Ray emerged in scrubs, fatigue etched into her eyes, but a softness in her tone. "He made it through the night. That's something." Nia pressed her face against the cool bars of the cage, tears wetting metal. "Hear that, Rex? We've got more stars to find." The faint wag of his tail answered her prayer. 2 days later, the illusion of safety cracked again. At Riverview Middle School, Nia had just opened her lunchbox when the PA summoned her to the office. Waiting inside were Derek Barnes and Chase Keene, uniforms crisp, smiles thin. "We just need a few words," Barnes said, voice low. Panic clawed at Nia's chest. She backed against the wall, breathing quick, her eyes darting for escape. The principal stood stiffly nearby, already uneasy. Erica stormed in moments later, her heels sharp against tile. "You will not question my niece without a guardian or counsel present," she snapped. Nia's knees buckled, and she slid to the floor, covering her ears. A piercing cry cut through the office, echoing down the hall. Teachers rushed in. Students whispered outside the door. Barnes muttered something about procedure, but their attempt had failed. This time the child's panic drowned their authority.
That evening, Thomas sat at the dining table with his laptop, screens glowing like war maps. He replayed the official body cam files Holt had discreetly provided. Each video ended the same way, screen freezing, battery failure logged at precise times. He overlaid timestamps with patrol logs, tracing routes like arteries across the suburb. Every gap clustered around families of color. "It's a pattern," he said grimly, tapping keys. Nia leaned against his shoulder, her notebook open beside him, sketches of constellations now filled with angry crossouts. Erica studied the maps, her lawyer's instincts sharpened. This isn't negligence, it's deliberate. Outside, the neighborhood sprinklers hissed, masking the quiet rage building in the Cole household. In the corner, Rex stirred in his sleep, a faint whimper breaking the silence. Thomas's jaw set as he closed the laptop. The soldier in him recognized it now, not random, but a campaign. A week later, Dr. Nora Ray guided Rex into the rehabilitation room, his side shaved where stitches ran. A water treadmill churned softly, bubbles rising as his paws touched the submerged track. Nia stood beside the glass, wearing oversized pool shoes, her hand pressed flat against the window. "Easy, boy," she whispered. Rex stumbled at first, legs trembling, but then his rhythm steadied. His gaze found Nia, and his ears flicked, recognizing the constellations she murmured. Nora smiled faintly. "He's fighting. That's more than I expected at this stage." For the first time since the shooting, Nia's laugh cracked through, fragile but real. Thomas's shoulders loosened just a fraction as he leaned against the wall. Erica discreetly wiped her eyes, relief softening her stern exterior. For a moment, the room wasn't about lawsuits or press conferences. It was about a dog and a girl learning to breathe again.
Peace lasted only hours. That evening, a knock rattled the Cole front door. 2 Child Protective Services workers stood framed in the porch light, clipboards in hand. "We've received a report," the woman said, tone cold. "Allegations of unstable behavior, potential danger to the child." Nia froze on the staircase, eyes wide. Thomas's voice remained calm. "On what grounds?" He clicked his phone's recorder on the table. The workers exchanged looks, but pressed forward, citing concern over a veteran with possible PTSD. Erica appeared from the living room, legal brief in hand. "You have no authority to remove this child without due process," she said firmly. The tension stretched thin until the workers, unsettled by the recording, scheduled a follow-up. When the door closed, Nia buried her face into Rex's fur. "They want to take me away, don't they?" she whispered. Thomas's silence was an answer itself. Late that night, Katie Holt sat quietly at a corner table in O'Malley's pub, nursing a soda, pretending to scroll her phone. At the bar, Chase Keene downed whiskey after whiskey, his voice rising with alcohol. "That's how you handle 'em," he boasted, slamming his glass down. "Scare the mutt, scare the kid, show 'em who runs the block." Laughter from a nearby patron covered his words, but Holt had already tapped her recorder. Barnes leaned in, his voice lower but caught in fragments. "Families like that make it look like the dog snapped." Holt's heart pounded, fear laced with duty. She slipped out quietly, phone clenched tight. In the parking lot, she texted Erica one line, "Got something. Big." Across town, Rex stirred in his sleep beside Nia's bed, a faint groan leaving his throat. Even in rest, the wound carried the echo of cruelty. By morning, Ruth Vargas's porch video appeared online. The shaky clip showed Rex's defensive stance, calm, protective, not lunging. It captured Nia's scream, the blood, Barnes muttering aggressive like a script. The post spread quickly, comments pouring in. That wasn't aggression. Protect that child. Justice for Rex. At the vet clinic, strangers left envelopes marked for recovery in a donation jar. Neighbors brought meals to the Cole home, casseroles and soups stacked on the counter. Nia walked into the kitchen, surprised by the warmth. She touched a container labeled for Nia and Rex, her lips trembling into a faint smile. For once, the fight wasn't just theirs. Community eyes were watching, phones were recording, and voices were rising. Thomas stood at the window, scanning the street for threats, but behind him, Nia bent to whisper in Rex's ear. "People care about you, boy. About us." Thomas knew patterns better than chance. He emailed the precinct himself, inviting Barnes and Keene for a wellness check. Cameras hidden around the house blinked red with readiness. When the knock came, he opened calmly, posture relaxed. "Gentlemen," he said evenly. Barnes stepped inside with feigned courtesy, Chase close behind, smirking. "We've had reports you're making threats," Barnes began, voice dripping with false concern. Thomas spread his hands. "You're welcome to look. I've nothing to hide." The officers moved deeper, tension thick as oil. Chase shoved past him suddenly, shoulder hard, muttering, "You think you're untouchable." Thomas didn't react. The cameras caught every shove, every word. Upstairs, Nia pressed Rex's leash to her chest, listening. Erica sat silently in the kitchen, pen ready on her notepad. Barnes leaned closer, his whisper sharp. "We'll make sure she knows fear." The microphones captured it all, clear as truth.
The living room camera blinked, capturing every breath. Chase shoved Thomas again, voice rising. "You people move in, think you belong, your mutt should have been put down." Barnes didn't stop him. Instead, he leaned close to Thomas's ear. "We decide who feels safe here." Thomas stood still, arms at his sides, his calm calculated. "Are you finished?" he asked quietly. The shove, the words, the malice, they were all preserved in crystal clear audio. Barnes smirked, unaware of the trap. Upstairs, Nia gripped Mex's leash so tightly her knuckles whitened. Downstairs, Erica closed her notebook and tapped her phone, sending a silent text. "Got it." When the door finally slammed shut, silence hung heavy. Thomas exhaled once, shoulders dropping. On the screen, the file uploaded to encrypted drives. For the first time, the lies had proof sharp enough to cut through blue shields. Officer Katie Holt arrived the next morning, uniform crisp, but her eyes restless with nerves. She sat at the Cole kitchen table, voice low but steady. "I'm ready to testify," she said, sliding a flash drive across to Erica. Keene bragged at the bar. "I recorded it." He admitted they staged the aggression. Nia sat quietly nearby, one hand resting on Rex's sleeping head. Holt's gaze softened. "I became a cop to protect people like her, not to terrify them." Thomas studied her, soldier's eyes measuring courage. He nodded once. "Then you're doing the right thing." Erica exhaled, relief breaking through days of iron control. "With this in our footage, we have a case no one can bury." Holt swallowed hard, aware she'd crossed a line her colleagues wouldn't forgive. "They'll come after me," she whispered. Erica's reply was firm. "Then we'll stand with you."
At the rehab center, water rippled as Rex stepped carefully onto the treadmill, stitches taut but healing. Nia walked beside the glass, whispering encouragement, her notebook tucked under her arm. "One step? Two? You've got this." Rex's ears twitched, his amber eyes finding hers. For the first time since the shooting, he lifted his paw higher, pressing forward with steadier rhythm. Nora Ray smiled faintly from the console. "That's progress," she said. Nia gasped, laughter bubbling up unexpectedly, and for a heartbeat, the sterile room was filled with warmth. Thomas leaned against the wall, arms folded but lips curved in the smallest smile. Erica snapped a quick photo, Nia laughing, Rex moving, hope stitched between them. Later that night, Nia drew a new constellation in her notebook,
a cluster of stars shaped like a paw print. She named it Rex's Path, healing mapped in the sky. The courthouse buzzed with tension, cameras flashing in the lobby. Inside, Erica stood before the judge, voice sharp and unwavering. The defense claims aggression. The evidence says otherwise. Screens lit up with Ruth Vargas's porch video, then the body cam gaps, then the living room confrontation. Gasps rippled through the gallery as Barnes's words echoed. We decide who feels safe here. Nia sat in the front row, hands clenched in her lap, Rex's photo tucked inside her notebook. Beside her, Thomas remained steady, a silent wall of strength. Across the aisle, Barnes's jaw tightened, while Keene shifted uneasily, sweat beading at his hairline. The judge's gavel cracked once. Evidence admitted, bail hearing postponed. Erica's gaze flicked to Nia, then to Rex's empty service vest folded in her lap. The dog wasn't in the courtroom, but his presence filled every word, every decision, every breath.
By the third day of hearings, Chase Keene's confidence frayed. He fidgeted on the stand, eyes darted toward the gallery, where Nia sat silent, her stare unflinching. Erica's questions were razor-edged. Did the dog lunge, or did he stand still, protecting the child? Keene's mouth opened, but no sound came. Sweat trickled. Answer, the judge demanded. Finally, words tumbled out. Barnes told me, said make it look like aggression, said the report would cover us. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Barnes slammed his fist on the table, face scarlet, shouting, "Lies!" But the damage was done. The blue wall cracked, its mortar of silence crumbling. Keene's shoulders slumped as he muttered, "I didn't want to shoot. I just panicked." His words hung heavy, not absolution, but confirmation. Nia leaned against Thomas's arm, whispering into his sleeve, "Rex never did anything wrong, and now they know." Days later, the CPS worker returned, clipboard in hand, but the power in her stance was gone. Erica met her at the door, legal file ready. The complaint was traced to Barnes's associate, she stated flatly. Fabricated, retaliatory, and dismissed. The worker shifted uncomfortably, mumbling apologies before leaving. Nia watched from the staircase, her hand buried in Rex's fur. "They can't take me?" she asked softly. "No," Erica answered, her voice fierce. "They never could." Relief washed over the child like a fragile tide. She bent closer to Rex, whispering into his sleeve, "We're safe, boy." His tail tapped once, a slow rhythm of reassurance. Thomas stood in the hall, his posture finally easing, though his eyes still scanned the windows. The war wasn't over, but the house had reclaimed its safety. For Nia, that meant more than any ruling. It meant she could breathe again. The story spilled beyond Maple Ridge. News anchors replayed the porch video, the bar recording, the living room confrontation. Words like systemic targeting and patterned harassment scrolled across screens. City officials announced a full review of police canine engagement policy, a task force appointed under public pressure. At the Cole home, envelopes piled on the doorstep, letters, drawings of German shepherds, messages scrawled in crayon for Nia and Rex. Erica read headlines aloud, her tone cautious but hopeful. They can't bury it now. Thomas stood at the window, watching news trucks crowd the curb. Rex lay stretched across the rug, stitches healing, while Nia curled beside him, tracing shapes on his coat. "They're talking about us everywhere," she whispered. Thomas met her gaze. "Not just about us, about what they did, and that means change is coming." For the first time, he sounded almost convinced. In the courthouse hallway, as cameras flashed, Katie Holt, crouched to meet Nia's eyes. "You were brave," she said. "Rex was brave too." For a long moment, Nia stayed quiet, lips pressed tight. Then, almost in a whisper, words returned. "Thank you for telling the truth." Holt blinked, startled by the child's voice breaking its silence. Erica placed a gentle hand on Nia's back, steadying her. Thomas, standing tall beside them, felt a wave of relief stronger than any verdict. The girl who had stopped speaking after the gunshot had found her words again, fragile but fierce. Reporters shouted questions, microphones thrust forward, but Nia's ignored them. Instead, she bent to stroke Rex's vest, whispering into his ear, "We're winning, boy." His eyes half closed, tail brushing the floor, he seemed to understand. In that moment, courage wasn't in court, it was between a child and her dog.
The judge's ruling came swift and sharp. Bail denied. Defendants remanded pending trial. The gavel echoed, sealing the moment. Erica exhaled, shoulders dropping. But she didn't smile. This wasn't triumph, only a step. Barnes scowled, rage burning even in handcuffs. Keene sat hollow, already broken by his own confession. In the gallery, neighbors and strangers alike leaned forward, some clapping softly, others murmuring prayers. Nia reached for Thomas's hand, clutching tight. Rex, unable to attend, waited at home, his stitches healing, his spirit intact. "They can't hurt us anymore?" she asked. Thomas looked at her, careful with his words. "They'll face justice now. That's what matters." Outside, cameras swarmed, headlines forming. But for the Coles, victory wasn't in the courthouse. It waited at home, in the steady heartbeat of a dog who had refused to abandon his child, even under fire. That night, quiet finally settled over the Cole home. On the porch swing, Nia set her telescope toward the autumn sky. Rex curled at her feet, chest rising evenly. The stitches along his side glistened faintly in moonlight, scars of survival. She opened her notebook, drawing a cluster of stars she named Rex's Star, circling it carefully. Thomas watched from the doorway, the folded leash resting on the table behind him. It was no longer a weapon of control, but a relic of loyalty and sacrifice. Erica joined him, coffee in hand, her voice softer than usual. "They'll heal together." Nia laughed quietly as Rex nudged her hand with his nose, demanding attention. "See that, boy? That's yours." The telescope gleamed, stars stitched across the night. For the first time since the gunshot, the house felt whole. Justice wasn't perfect, but hope had come home.